Evelyn and I were reborn. We came back to the day of our wedding, right after college graduation. She was still in a makeup chair when she suddenly tore off the pristine white gown. "Tim," she said, her voice sharp and final, "I've thought it over. We're not right for each other. I'm not marrying you." I didn't try to stop her. I knew in our last life, she regretted every moment she spent with me. Heart that won't warm up stays frozen no matter how hard you try to melt it. And just like that, 3 years of love evaporated. We went our separate ways. Evelyn left the country, cutting off all contact. I stayed behind in Riverton. 7 years later, she returned, a success story with her childhood sweetheart, and with a picture of happiness. Their engagement announcement splashed all over social media. But when she found out I'd been married for 4 years to the daughter of the city's richest man, her regret was a poison she couldn't swallow. "Tim, you promised you'd only ever love me," she'd screamed in our first life. "How could you do this to me?" But that was then. This is now. On a perfect weekend, I clear my schedule to spend the day at the beach with my daughter. She was a whirlwind of joy, giggling as she flung sand and seawater all over me. I was watching her, my heart overflowing, when my old college buddy Mark called. "Tim, where are you? It's getting late." I completely forgotten about the class reunion. "Sorry, man. Totally spaced. I'll be there." By the way, he added, his tone shifting. "Forgot to tell you, Evelyn's back in town. She's with Ethan." "Ethan?" "Back in freshman year. He was my biggest rival. He and Evelyn were childhood friends, practically joined at the hip. Their connection ran deep. But I won her over, or so I thought. I still remember Ethan clapping me on the shoulder after she and I got together, a fake smile on his face. "You better take care of her," man said, a warning disguised as a joke. "I'll be there to pick up the pieces." I had the housekeeper take my daughter home and grab a cab to the hotel. On the way, Mark filled me in. Turns out Evelyn had done very well for herself abroad. With Ethan's help, she'd landed a management position at a Fortune 500 company. She made more in a month than most people do in 2 years. On top of that, her design work had won international awards. It was a rising star. Their return to Riverton was almost certainly to get married. Mark kept warning me to be careful, to not lose my cool at the party. "The person she is now, Tim," he said, "you can't afford to piss her off. And don't even think about messing with Ethan." "Thanks for the heads up," I said with a calm smile. I was stepping out of the cab at the hotel when a sleek black BMW 3 Series screeched a halt behind me. "If it isn't our resident genius, Tim." The voice stripped with sarcasm. I turned. At the wheel was Kevin, Ethan's most loyal lapdog. He'd hated my guts ever since Evelyn chose me over Ethan in college, even threatening to have me. I still suspected he was behind the random mugging I suffered just off campus. Back then, Kay parked haphazardly and swaggered over, slapping my shoulder. "Tim, my man, years go by, have you?" I just smiled. Before I could reply, a Porsche Cayenne pulled up, and, in the passenger seat, looking like she'd stepped off a magazine cover, was Evelyn. 7 years had passed. He wore designer sunglasses, a head-to-toe brand-name outfit, and flawless makeup. Ethan was driving, and when he saw me, his eyes narrowed into slits. A triumphant smirk he couldn't hide spreading across his face. Kevin drew to form, scurried over like a puppy, fawning as he opened the passenger door. "Ethan, you made it." "Yeah." Ethan got out and gave me a dismissive nod. "Tim, long time no see," I echoed. Evelyn looked me up and down. The sandy hair, the dirty t-shirt, the board shorts and flip-flops. Her perfectly sculpted eyebrows furrowed in distaste. "Tim, have you gone backward? You couldn't even bother to change for a class reunion?" I scratched my head. Playing dumb. Didn't have time. It was a last-minute thing. Evelyn scoffed. "With an attitude like that, I bet you don't even have a girlfriend, do, Tim?" I nodded. "Nope." Kevin let out a derisive laugh. "Come on, Tim. You were the star of our department back at Riverton. How did you end up like this? You're embarrassing all of us, man. Don't you have any ambition?" Ethan could barely contain his glee, but he put on a show of magnanimity. "That's enough. We're all old friends here. No need to be so harsh." He turned to me, his voice oozing fake sympathy. "Look, talent doesn't pay the bills these days. I'm sure Tim has his reasons for being in this spot. For my sake, let's not rub salt in the wound." Kevin just grinned and shut up. "Let's go," Ethan said. "Everyone's probably waiting." We walked into the hotel. Evelyn linked her arm through Ethan's, a gesture so natural it was like a second skin. She was tall, slender, her long legs accentuated by stilettos, turning more than a few heads. Ethan shot a glance back at me over his shoulder, a look of pure victory he tended not to see. The private room was already buzzing when Ethan and Evelyn entered. Our old classmates practically jumped to their feet, their faces lit up with welcoming smiles. "You finally made it. Looking sharp as ever, Evelyn. You look stunning. So classy. You two look so good together. Looks like we'll be getting a wedding invitation soon." Ethan beamed at the praise, while Evelyn blushed, feigning modesty. I trailed in behind them like a ghost. No one said a word to me. No one even looked my way. Finally, Mark waved me over to an empty seat in the most inconspicuous corner of the room. As the food arrived, the room filled with laughter and toasts. I sat in my corner, ignored, and just ate. The conversation inevitably turned to Ethan. Mark asked, "So, Ethan, the company is booming. I heard you just landed a partnership with Sterling Enterprises. Is that true?" Ethan smiled casually. "We're still in but it's looking very promising." Evan raised his glass. "Dude, the CEO of Sterling, richest man in Riverton. Once you're in with them, you'll be unstoppable." "It's nothing, really," Ethan said, waving it off modestly. "Just a small business. Compared to Evelyn, my achievements are nothing. She's an internationally recognized designer now. Just won a major award." As he spoke, he took Evelyn's hand, and they exchanged a look brimming with affection. "Tim, hey genius. Ethan asked you a question." Kevin gave me a rough shove. I looked up, then was watching me, a mocking smile playing on his lips. "Tim, everyone's what they're up to. It's your turn. So where are you making your fortune these days?" "I'm not working at the moment," I said calmly. "Unemployed." "Unemployed," Kevin Crowley, his voice dripping with fake disbelief. "Tim, the genius from Riverton, you can't even find a job. If word gets out, you'll be a laughingstock." A wave of snickers went through the room. Evelyn looked at me with a mixture of pity and disgust, but underneath it all, there was a flicker of belief that she had made the right choice. If she had married me, stayed in Riverton, her life would have been the same as the last one. Comfortable, but painfully average. Nothing like the glamorous life she had now. Mark frowned. "Tim, if you don't have an income, how are you getting by?" "I do odd jobs here and there," I said. "Some freelance stuff, enough to support myself." Kevin scanned me from head to toe, expression scornful. "Free stuff? Do you mean hauling bricks at a construction site?" I didn't answer, and the silence was all the confirmation they needed. The whispers started. I'd had enough. I muttered an excuse and headed for the bathroom. Was washing my hands when I heard the click-clack of high heels behind me. It was Evelyn. She stood there, her eyes full of a familiar disappointment. "Tim, I can't believe it. Just because I didn't marry you, let yourself go completely. You become a total deadbeat. It's been 7 years," she continued, her voice sharp with judgment. "Everyone has built a career. Even Mark is a sales manager now. But you have zero ambition. I'm so disappointed in you." I looked at her face, so familiar yet so alien, and said calmly, "Everyone gets to choose their own life. I chose this one because I like it. I have enough to eat, a roof over my head, and I don't have to deal with office politics or corporate burnout. It's a good life." Evelyn let out a contemptuous laugh. "Tim, do you know why I didn't marry you?" "I do," I said evenly. "We want different things. You want money and fame. That's what matters most to you." "It's not just what I want. It's what any sane person wants," she retorted. "You only live once. If you don't strive for something, what's the difference between you and a piece of driftwood?" She softened her tone slightly, a calculated move. "You're brilliant. You're responsible. You can be romantic. You're the ideal husband material. But your biggest flaw is your lack of ambition. You're happy being a big fish in a tiny, insignificant pond." To a step closer. "Tim, life is short. If you don't push yourself, you'll never know what you're capable of. I'm glad I made the right choice instead of marrying you. I went abroad and fought for my career. Now I've come back successful. You and I were in 2 different worlds." "Now," I nodded. "You're right. You've changed. But some people never change," she said, her voice dripping with scorn. "Or they get even worse. Tim, I think you're destined to be a loser for the rest of your life." After delivering the final blow, she sighed dramatically. "But fine. For old time's sake, I'll give you a chance. Ethan's company is looking for a design assistant. With your talent, you could handle it. The pay isn't great, maybe 6 or 7,000 a month with bonuses, but it's better than what you have now." I shook my head. "Thank you for the offer, but I'm not interested." Her brow kneaded into a sharp V. "Tim, you're in the state, and you still have an ego. Ethan would never have offered this if it wasn't for me." Before I could reply, Ethan appeared. He wrapped an arm around Evelyn's waist, his voice smooth as silk. "What's wrong, babe? You look upset." "Nothing. Just annoyed by someone who doesn't know what's good for him." "Oh." Ethan turned his gaze to me, a smug smile playing on his lips. "Let me guess. Tim turned down your generous offer, didn't he?" He choked his head in mock pity. "Tim, don't bite the hand that feeds you. Evelyn has a good heart. She's only trying to help you. Guard of nostalgia. Look at you. Look worse than the security guard at the front door. She offers you a white-collar job with a decent salary that fresh grads would kill for, and you throw it back in her face. You're a real disappointment." I kept my voice level, "Ethan. I know my own limit. I haven't had a real job in years. I'm used to being lazy. Thanks for the offer, but no thanks." Evelyn snorted. "You can't help someone who doesn't want to be helped." She turned and walked away. After she was out of earshot, Ethan leaned in close, his voice low and menacing. "Tim, remember what I told you freshman year? I told you to take care of her, or I'd move in. You actually let her go, so thanks for that." That's the only reason I let her offer you a job. His smile vanished. But I'll give you another warning. Don't even think about getting back together with her, or I will make you disappear. He punctuated the last sentence with a hard shove against my shoulder, his face twisted in a snarl, all traces of his charming facade gone. I just looked at him and smiled faintly. Back in the room, it wasn't long before the main event began. Ethan got down on one knee in front of everyone, presenting Evelyn with a massive bouquet of roses. As he proposed, the room erupted in applause and cheers. Evelyn feigned surprise, but a delighted, shy smile spread across her face as she accepted the flowers. Mark shot a worried glance my way, but relaxed when he saw my expression was completely neutral. But then, as Ethan reached into his pocket for the ring, his expression changed. That's weird, he said. Pat his jacket. The diamond ring? It's gone. Kevin piped up. Did you leave it in the car, man? No way. I remember putting it in my pocket when I got out. I checked on it during dinner. It was definitely there. A murmur went through the room. Maybe it fell out somewhere. Kevin immediately seized on the idea. That's it. One of us is a thief. So one with sticky fingers stole Ethan's ring. That ring must have been expensive, right? Someone asked. Ethan tried to sound casual. Not too bad. Just over $1 million. A collective gasp went through the room. Mark suggested calling the police, but Kevin shot that down. No, the cops will take forever. Let's just search everyone. We're all old friends here. For Ethan's future happiness. Can all put up with a little inconvenience without waiting for an answer. March straight toward me. Tim, we'll start with you. Don't mind, do you? I said I didn't, and he immediately started patting me down. A few seconds later, he pulled a glittering ring from my pocket. This is it, Ethan exclaimed. That's my ring. The room exploded. Evelyn stared at me, her face a mask of cold, absolute disappointment. I tried to tell him I didn't do it, but no one listened. As I stood there, cornered and accused, the door to the private room swung open. Led by the hotel manager, a woman of stunning beauty and unshakable confidence walked in. He was holding the hand of a little girl about 2 years old, who looked like a perfect porcelain doll. Ethan froze for a second. Then his face broke into a wide, sycophantic grin as he rushed forward. Sterling, what a pleasant surprise. What brings you here? The woman gave him a quizzical look. I'm sorry, have we met? I'm Ethan from Apex Innovations. We spoke briefly at the bidding conference the other day. Mark whispered to the person next to him. Who is that? Kevin, the resident expert on the rich and powerful, whispered back. You don't know? That's Sophia Sterling, the new CEO of Sterling Enterprises. Her dad is worth billions. She's a true heiress. The entire room was stunned into silence. But the biggest shock was yet to come. The little girl suddenly let go of her mother's hand and came toddling straight toward me, her arms outstretched. Daddy up. The room fell into a deathly silence. Every pair of eyes snapped toward me. My daughter wrapped her tiny arms around my leg and pouted. Daddy up. I bent down with a smile and lifted her into my arms. There you are, little troublemaker. She immediately buried her face against my shoulder. I miss Daddy. I was only gone for a little while. Sophia walked over calmly, her heels clicking across the floor. Her gaze landed on the ring, still clutched in Kevin's hand, before she looked at me. Finished? She asked. Almost. She nodded. I'll wait. Nobody spoke. Kevin stared between me and Sophia, his mouth hanging open. Daddy. Ethan's smile had frozen completely. His face drained of color. Sophia, the billionaire heiress, CEO of Sterling Enterprises, had just quietly admitted she was waiting for me. Evelyn's fingers unconsciously tightened around the bouquet. She looked from Sophia, to me, to the child, then back again. Her lips trembled. You? She forced out a laugh. Tim, whose child is that? My daughter. The answer came without hesitation. And her mother? I looked toward Sophia. My wife. Crack. The bouquet slipped from Evelyn's hands and hit the floor. The roses scattered everywhere. What? She stared blankly. No, that's impossible. Weren't you just saying you didn't have a girlfriend? I don't. I smiled faintly. I have a wife. The room exploded. What? He's married to Sophia Sterling, the daughter of the richest man in Riverton? No wonder he wasn't looking for work. My God. Kevin's face turned green. Mark nearly dropped his glass. Only Ethan stood completely frozen. His mind replayed every word he had said tonight. Talent doesn't pay the bills. You look worse than the security guard. Don't bite the hand that feeds you. Now he realized the company he'd been desperately trying to cooperate with belonged to his classmate's wife. Sophia looked at me. Our daughter insisted on coming. She said Daddy promised to build sandcastles after the reunion. The little girl puffed out her cheeks. Daddy liar. Everyone laughed instinctively. Even Mark couldn't hold it in. I pinched her little nose. I'll make it up to you. 2 ice creams. 3. Deal. The adorable negotiation somehow made the atmosphere even more surreal. Evelyn watched the interaction without blinking. This was the peaceful life she'd mocked only minutes ago. No office politics, no endless overtime, no exhausting competition. Yet the man she'd called a loser had somehow married the woman every elite family in Riverton wanted to curry favor with. She suddenly remembered his words in the bathroom. I have enough to eat, a roof over my head, and I don't have to deal with office politics. At the time, she'd thought he was making excuses. Now, he'd simply been telling the truth. Why would the husband of the sterling heiress need a job? Sophia suddenly noticed the ring in Kevin's hand. What happened? Before anyone answered, Mark quickly explained everything. The missing proposal ring, the search, the ring found in Tim's pocket. Sophia listened quietly. Then she looked at me. You stole it. I chuckled. You believe that? She looked almost offended. My husband doesn't even remember where he leaves his own car keys. She smiled. If he wanted a diamond ring, he'd open my jewelry cabinet. Our daughter uses diamonds more expensive than that one as toy decorations. The room became awkwardly silent again. Sophia turned toward the hotel manager. Check the surveillance footage. If someone framed my husband, her gentle smile disappeared. I'll make sure they regret it. Kevin's face instantly lost all color. The hotel manager immediately nodded. Right away, Ms. Sterling. He spoke into his radio. Seal the exits. No one leaves until security finishes reviewing the surveillance footage. Kevin's heart skipped a beat. W8, isn't that a little excessive? We're all classmates here. Sophia didn't even spare him a glance. My husband was publicly accused of theft. My family takes slander seriously. Within minutes, 2 security guards wheeled in a monitor connected to the hotel's security system. The footage began to play. Everyone crowded around. The camera showed Ethan kneeling to propose. Then, a few minutes earlier, Kevin excused himself from the table. He walked toward the restroom. There he accidentally bumped into me as I came out after talking with Evelyn. His hand brushed against my shorts pocket. At the time, I'd simply stepped aside to let him pass. Now, under the camera's high-definition recording, everyone could clearly see what he'd done. He slipped something into my pocket, frame by frame. Crystal clear. The room erupted. He planted it. My God, so Tim really was framed. What kind of person does that? Kevin's legs gave out. He collapsed into a chair. Ethan's face turned deathly pale. His proposal ring had somehow ended up in Kevin's hand, and Kevin had planted it on me. Everyone's eyes slowly shifted toward Ethan. Kevin had been Ethan's closest follower since college. No one believed he'd do something like this without a reason. Ethan forced a stiff smile. "Okay, Kevin, explain yourself." Kevin looked at Ethan in panic. His forehead was drenched in sweat. He knew if he admitted Ethan had ordered him, his career would be over. But if he took the blame alone, Sophia Sterling would never let him go. Sophia folded her arms. "You have 30 seconds. Then I'll have my lawyer speak with you instead." Kevin completely broke. "It wasn't my idea." He pointed at Ethan with a trembling finger. "He told me to do it." The room exploded again. Ethan shouted, "Shut up, you idiot." Kevin cried hysterically. "You said once Tim got arrested, everyone would believe he stole it because he was unemployed. You promised nothing could go wrong. You said after tonight he'd never be able to stay in Riverton again." Every sentence landed like a bomb. The classmates stared at Ethan in disbelief. So this whole thing was planned. Mark slammed his fist onto the table. "Ethan, you've gone completely insane." Evelyn looked at Ethan as though she'd never met him before. Her voice trembled. You told me Tim was jealous of us. You said he might try to ruin the proposal. So, you were the one trying to ruin him." Ethan hurried toward her. "Evelyn, listen to me. I only did it because..." She stepped back. "Don't touch me." For the first time since returning to Riverton, there was fear in Ethan's eyes. Meanwhile, my daughter blinked in confusion. She tugged gently on my sleeve. "Daddy, why are they yelling?" I smiled and kissed her forehead. "Because some grown-ups made bad choices." She nodded seriously. "When I make bad choice, I say so." The innocent words echoed through the silent room. Several classmates lowered their heads in embarrassment. Even they had mocked me without asking for the truth. Sophia reached over and held my free hand. She looked at the hotel manager. "I'll be filing a police report." She then glanced at Ethan and Kevin. "My legal team will also pursue civil damages. You try to frame my husband for theft. You picked the wrong person." At those calm words, Ethan's composure finally shattered. He realized that his long-awaited partnership with Sterling Enterprises was over before it had even begun. And that was only the beginning. The police arrived before anyone could leave. The surveillance footage, Kevin's confession, and dozens of witnesses left no room for argument. Kevin was arrested on the spot for framing me. As officers turned toward Ethan, he desperately tried to distance himself. "I didn't tell him to do it." Kevin laughed bitterly. "You think I planned this by myself?" He pulled out his phone. "I recorded everything." He played a voice message. Ethan's voice filled the room. "Slipped the ring into his pocket. Once everyone sees it, Tim's life is over. Silence. An officer immediately handcuffed Ethan. He shouted as he was dragged away. Kevin, you traitor. Kevin sneered. You taught me to protect myself. The next morning, the story exploded across every news outlet. CEO candidate exposed for framing former classmate. Apex executive arrested after proposal scandal. Sterling Enterprises ends cooperation immediately. Every investor pulled out. Banks froze Apex's credit lines. Within 3 days, the company declared bankruptcy. Ethan wasn't finished suffering. Several former employees came forward, accusing him of stealing designs, manipulating contracts, and taking kickbacks. The police reopened multiple investigations. One charge became 5. 5 became 12. He was eventually sentenced to several years in prison. Kevin wasn't spared either. He lost his job. No company in Riverton dared hire someone known for planting evidence. His girlfriend left him. His parents publicly apologized to the victims before cutting ties with him. Evelyn canceled the engagement that same week. She stood outside the detention center after visiting Ethan one last time. I love the person I thought you were. You don't anymore? I don't even know who you are. She walked away without looking back. After everything settled, Evelyn came to my house alone. She looked at the garden where our daughter was chasing butterflies while Sophia laughed beside her. The scene was warm, peaceful, everything she'd once dismissed as ordinary. You really look happy, she whispered. I am. She lowered her head. In our last life, were you this happy too? No. Why? Because I spent too much time trying to become the person you wanted instead of the person I already was. Tears welled in her eyes. I made the wrong choice. I smiled gently. No, you made the choice you wanted. And I made mine. At that moment, my daughter ran over. Daddy. She threw herself into my arms. Sophia followed with a helpless smile. She insisted on showing you the shell she found. The little girl proudly held up a tiny pink seashell. Pretty, it is. Sophia naturally slipped her hand into mine. Ready to go. I nodded. We're taking her to the aquarium. As we walked away together, Evelyn remained standing alone in front of the gate. She finally understood what she had lost. Not wealth, not status, but the man who had loved her wholeheartedly in 2 lifetimes. Unfortunately for her, by the time she realized it, he was already someone else's forever.